This is the Filmmakers Forum of the Nollywood Studies Center, School of Media and Communication. It's a platform to facilitate interaction amongst members of the industry, filmmaking industry, and the audience. And the forum holds online, as we've been doing it for a little while now. And so thank you all very much for joining us. We have with us as guests today Mr. Ali Nuhu, actor, producer, director, and scriptwriter. His acting career spans beginning in 1999. He is described as the king of Bollywood, but he has also firmly established himself in Nollywood. He has a bachelor's degree in geography from the University of Jos. He studied film production and cinematic arts at the University of Southern California. He also took part in the film training program at the Indian School of Media Studies in New Delhi. The films to his credit include Danadam Butulu, Sitanda, Dijanagala, Prince of the Niger, Wasila, and Last Flight to Abuja. Also, Wani Hanin, Matan Gida, Uju Kokoro, Banana Island, Ghost, Mujahala, Merriment, Real Yoruba Divans, Sankaja, Dear Afi, Amina, and One Lagos Night. These are just a few, really, of what he has in his vast repertoire. In 2017, Ali became the face of the consumer for the Nigerian Communications Commission and is also an ambassador to Global Cup Nigeria. Over the years, he has worked as a brand ambassador for other major brands such as Royco, Pepsi, and Blue Boat Champions Milk. Ali Nuhu has won various awards during the course of his career. These awards include Best Upcoming Artist Award at the 3rd Africa Movie Academy Awards for his role in Sitanda, Best Lead Actor in A House of Pain for his role in Madubin Dubawa at the 4th Best of Nollywood Awards, and Best Actor in a Film at the 2013 Nigerian Entertainment Awards. He also won the City People's Entertainment Award for Kannywood's Face of the Year in 2017. Best Indigenous Language Movie at Africa Magic Viewers' Choice Awards in 2018 for his film Mansoor. He's also the founder and chairman of a production company called FKD Productions. So once again, thank you so very much for being with us today. And we look forward to this conversation. Well, let's get going. Thank you. Let's get the ball rolling. You studied geography in the University of Jos, and well, you have switched completely into acting in the film industry. What led you to abandon geography for acting, and how did you get your first break?
Well, good morning, everyone. I'll start with, I actually had the passion to be in this profession right from when I was a kid, because I was always glued to the TV. I rarely go out. I was an introvert then, I'll say. And watching movies frequently now made me develop the interests. So what most people do not really know about me is that what actually informed my decision to go and study in Jos is the fact that there used to be soap operas running on TV that are shot in Jos. I actually got admission to study pharmacy in Ahmadu Bello University. I was supposed to go start my 100 levels there, but then I said no. I had to go and do remedials in Jos, just because I want to accomplish this dream of getting to meet these people. So along the line, while I was in Jos, I was studying, and I decided to go for an audition that I saw. I saw an advert on NTA Jos. I went for it, and I was fortunate to get a minor role. A role of about 5 scenes, but I had like 2 speaking scenes only. So that's where I started off from, and I met a lot of people that were into TV production, one. Then secondly, some used to go to Lagos because then the home video business has started flourishing. So from then onwards, filmmakers kept coming from Lagos to shoot movies like Mama Sunday, Secret Gold Mine, Return to Kazundia, and a lot of them in Jos. And that's where I started connecting with people from Nollywood. Now, having done that, I started learning script writing under one of my mentors called Waziri Zayanu. He was with NTA just then before he moved to Abuja. So he was my tutor in that aspect. So generally, this is what made me shift, my interest from geography to filmmaking. And I must say that I was not privileged to study the arts while I was in secondary school. I went to a science secondary school, so I had no option but to study geography. Had I been able to study arts, I think I would have gone for theater arts or something along that line. So this is it. Talking about my break, on my return to Kano immediately after studies, before I went for youth service, I mingled with a couple of people that were into Kannywood. Then my mentor, Tijani Ibrahim, he's late, introduced me to a couple of people, and I even showed them one of the scripts I wrote. One person was about to invest in it, and suddenly I was called for youth service. So I went for youth service in Ibadan. Unfortunately for me, I had my elder brother that was a resident in Lagos. So it was always easy for me to, move from Ibadan to Lagos for weekends and so. And I was able to connect again with some of the people I met in Jos. So you see, this thing about having this network, matters a lot in this profession. So I met them in a place called Winnie's Guest Inn, and I was able to clinch one or two roles to them, which I featured in. My major break came in Kannywood after I finished youth service and went back to Kano. The script I wrote was adopted by one of my friends who wanted to go into film production. We now met my mentor, Tijani Ibrahim, and he directed it. That's Abin Sirili. That was the first major role I played in my entire career. Unfortunately for me, the movie clicked with the audience. And before you know it, I had like 4 or 5 scripts again where I was given lead role to play. And in that first movie, I acted a double role of 2 guys, one called Faisal and the other one, Jamilu. And Faisal and Jamilu happened to be twins, but then they were a direct opposite of each other. So I was able to showcase all I had as the bad guy and the good guy. So that gave me a very good platform. That's where I got my break from.
Wow, that was challenging for a first major role to play 2 opposing characters.
Of course.
But you have mentioned that you got some training in script writing. Where did the acting skills come from? Yes, there's the inherent one, but did you receive any training, any guidance in really how to then play out these different roles that you eventually began taking? Have you received any training in acting, or did you at that time?
No, at that time, honestly, I have not had any formal training or not studied under anybody to be able to do that. In fact, I was skeptical in the first place when my mentor, Tijani Ibrahim, said, "You're taking the lead role." And I'm like, "No, I just wrote the script. Why do I have to take the lead role?" He said, "You're the only person I can interpret this role very well," because while we were having a conversation, he noticed that I understood everything about the characterization of both the characters, both of the lead characters. So, and that's why he insisted. I said, "Okay, fine, let me give it a try." So it was like a trial and error thing, and just fell into place.
But since that time, how do you then go about preparing for your roles? I know that different actors have different methods of getting into a character. Yeah. What is yours? How do you prepare for it?
You see, as at then, I didn't have any idea of that. Now, the first movie that was like an eye-opener for me to understand that an actor really needs to, prepare to play a character was when I was about to play the role of a royalty in a movie called Sangaya. It's a Hausa movie. In fact, it's mentioned as the highest selling Hausa movie ever in history, Sangaya. So the director linked me up with some guys from the royal home in Kano. So they had to teach me a lot of things to do with the royalty, how they greet, how they sit, how they talk, how they reply you, and what have you. That was when it dawned on me that, oh, so if you're to play roles like this, you really need to go through this, learn how these things are being done. So that's when it dawned on me. And after that, for any character I'm playing, I try to see what profession the character belongs to, the home the character comes from, how are the character traits, what is expected of that character. And I was able to understand that when the person who taught me scriptwriting, like I said, was Irizayan. He already told me that every character should have a life. Every character should be like a living person that you've met before. Everybody has their traits, their behaviors, the way they do things and everything. Just so when you're writing the scripts along the line, you don't make that character do anything contrary to what is its traits. So these are the things I, combined together, and I said, okay, fine. For any character, if I'm playing a policeman, a doctor, a pilot, what have you, I have to study their, their ethics, the way they behave. Then look at the point of view of the writer and what the writer is trying to communicate as regards that character he's written. So these things really helped me. And later, when I went to the Relativity Media School, the Los Angeles Center Studios, I did acting for the camera, and while I was being taught those things, I just found out that I had already had this, this feeling and this knowledge of what I'm being taught. So all the lecturers did was just to add up to what I've already learned.
Now, actors also speak about it's not merely to act out a role, but they actually live those roles. So that an actor, if he's on set for a month or so, is a different person because he's now trying to really live out that character. Do you have the challenge? Because I've heard some actors say this, that after this process, it is sometimes difficult to break away from that character.
That's it.
And then if it is a bad guy, you actually find yourself doing sometimes things that are alien to you because you're living. Have you had that challenge?
You see, yeah, talking about this challenge, yeah, it happened to me once. There was a film I did, a Hausa film I did called Razani, and I'm supposed to be stammering. The character is supposed to be stammering. I did it, and it's almost became a problem for me after the production, and that's when I said, some people say method acting. I'm not too comfortable with it because you get to live with that character. If you're not careful, it becomes a part of you. So getting out of it, some actors even complain that they need to see a psychiatric doctor.
Wow.
Yes, to get them out of that. The doctor talks to them, makes them understand that this is a character you played and this is how you can get out of it. Some put them through a routine so they could be able to get out of that. So I think that was the only time I came across something like that.
Okay. Along those lines, are there, for instance, characters that you say, no, I can't play this character? That you say, you find them distasteful? Does it happen that you're offered a role and you reject it because it doesn't align with some value you have or some idea you have, or it's just a character you cannot align with?
Yeah, you see, for me, this happens often, especially when it comes to Nollywood. a couple of my fans have been asking me, we rarely see you in Nollywood movies, or you hardly play lead roles in Nollywood movies. And that I think is attributed to the fact that my culture and religion play a major role as to what character I'm playing in a movie. It matters a lot. This whole entertainment thing we do, yes, it's our profession, but then we do it for the audience. A large chunk of my audience are from the north, from the core north, and they're mostly Muslims. So because of that, I'm being careful the kind of rules I do. And aside that, there's this thing about some rules that really don't make you look like a good role model in the society. Take it or leave it. In the core Hausa society, the fan following is very religious. Some fans practically make it look like they own you. They own you. So they have a right to what you should do and what you shouldn't do. I have a huge, fan base of children. There was a time a mother complained to me that her son saw me smoking in a movie, and she kept telling him, smoking is a bad thing, don't smoke. And the boy said, but Ali Nuhu was smoking in this movie, so how can you tell me it's a bad thing? If it's a bad thing, he won't do it. So this goes to tell you that these children, you're their role model, and you need to be careful what you do, what they see. And I think after that, I've not done any other movie that I was smoking cigarettes or puffing shisha or what have you. I try to, be careful or selective as to what I do on screen.
Does that then give you, I would call it a weight, a certain weight of responsibility in that sense, that maybe sometimes you find a bit uncomfortable?
Yeah, it does. It does, honestly. And that's why whenever someone says there's a project we're about to do, I try to ask the person that I really want to see the scripts. I want to know what extent you want that character to go into. For instance, there are scenes, nude scenes they want you to do, but I just need to see how nude do you want to see that character go? How about the extreme, If it's something I cannot do, I'll just say, no, I can't do this. If it's something like I can do, I'll just say, yes, I'll do it. It's a huge responsibility. And honestly, I'm being very conscious about it.
I think that it's good, really, my personal opinion, in the sense that truly the films have a great influence on people. So it does make a lot of sense, really. But along these lines, in that case, this question you said you asked people, how new do you want the character to be? Do you, given your standing, do you have that space to be able to dictate and say, modify your script a bit in order for me to take it? Do you have that space to be able to do that?
Yeah, in that aspect, I've done that separately and it has worked. You see, what most actors need to understand is that when you're upcoming, you're not in a position to dictate to producers, this is what I want, or modify this in the script. But there's a level you get to, you have your fan base, you are a brand on your own. So definitely if the filmmaker wants you on the project, they really listen to you. But then that shouldn't make you be selfish, do things in your favor. No, but try to just make the filmmaker understand that I'm doing this because this is what I stand for. And I hope it's not going to in any way affect your creativity. Right. So that's it. So I've done that separately, and most producers have agreed to that, and it's been done in a lot of projects.
Okay. Now, there's something, what you have been saying really brings to mind something that I have always wondered about. Because, well, you have Kannywood, you have Nollywood, you have the Yoruba filmmaking sector as well. And one does not often see crossovers? It happens, yes, but considering that it's all in the same country and so on, it doesn't seem to me that it's so frequent, the crossovers from one actor of an actor from one sector to another. But from what you say now, it heightens a sense that such crossovers may not be easy, given the differences of style, given the difference of background and the audiences that these actors are used to.
Yeah.
So how then did you have mentioned one or two things, but I would like to get a little more into that. What other kinds of challenges have you faced in terms of crossing over? And if you can speak a little about the experience of others that you might know, do people really face serious challenges that would lead people to say this crossover business is not for me?
Well, I'll say yes, because for some of the actors, a couple of the actors that have tried it, it hasn't been easy, one. Then secondly, it has cost some people their careers, in the sense that the industry up here in the north, they have issues, a lot of backlash, and in the long run, producers want to work with actors that the audience is comfortable with. So if you have such issues, it affects your career in the north. And the north made you, because most of us started out in the north. We identify more with our fans from northern Nigeria and outside northern Nigeria, in places where Hausa language is spoken. So if you have issues with these fans, it means you're losing your fan base and starting afresh. Now, how will you be able to, start afresh and build that fan base again in some other part of the country? That's a huge, constraint for someone. So this really plays a role in decision making when it comes to crossing over or not crossing over, and that's why you don't get to see a lot of actors. That's one. Secondly, some will tell you they are only comfortable doing movies in their local language. It's not as if they don't speak a foreign language. They do, but then they will tell you, no, I'm not interested. I've spoken to a couple of actors who told me, it's not as if I don't want to do English movies. I want to do it, but I'm more comfortable doing movies in my local language. Some people tell you that, and that's up to them. There's a decision, you can't change it. So I think these things play a major role in a decision making when it comes to crossing over or not crossing over.
Now, then, this also is to focus a little on your role as director producer. The cinemas, because the cinemas also, preferring or having films that play in the cinema is one way of building a fan base, not solely in one sector, but also across the board. Of course. In Kannywood, with much of your films, one does not see that happens too often. That films are directed or produced for the cinema, and then of course the distribution does not come so much to the, well, one could say to the south and so on and so forth. Why is this?
Great question. You see, talking about the cinemas, I think the Hausa people or the people from northern Nigeria have, their cinema culture is rich. It's been there for over 50 years, even before southern Nigeria. But then with the advent of the multiplexes, the kind of cinemas where you go to watch films in malls, and the present structure, I would say, we have everywhere across the globe. We didn't have investors that were able to build up cinemas in northern Nigeria. I think we only have Film House Cinema in Kano. Then there's a new one that just came up in Kano. Then I think Kaduna has one now, which is not opened yet. We don't even know. Some people say it's going to be Genesis, some say it's Film House, we do not know which. So with just two of this, cinema cinemas in northern Nigeria, I don't think it's sufficient for a filmmaker to do a movie targeted at the cinemas. Why I'm telling you this is because, you see, take a movie like King of Thieves, which released recently. It's an out Yoruba film, but it was able to rake in the amount of money it did because you have cinemas in almost all the Yoruba-speaking states. So this word of mouth publicity we keep talking about, even if people in northern Nigeria do not go to watch Yoruba movies, or people in Southeast do not go to watch Yoruba movies, if they get to hear that there's a movie running like that in Southwest and is making so much money, I mean, for the hype of it, a lot of people would want to go to the cinema and watch.
Yeah.
Now, let's come back to Hausa movies. There was a movie I produced in the year 2019, I directed in the year 2019 called Karki Manta Da Ni. It's my movie, I sponsored it. Now, I wanted screen counts in southern Nigeria. I was given 2 screens in Lagos, 1 in Ibadan. I think that's all that was given. But then the distribution company kept telling me, look, you have to come down, do a huge publicity for people to identify with the movie. You know, you don't have actors that come from southern Nigeria in this movie. But the movie was running very well in the north. So you see, partly I think it's because this thing about every region has its own actors, and having these actors in a movie is one of the factors that will make a movie go round.
Yeah.
For instance, most of the English movies, you have a combination of actors from northern Nigeria, from Southeast, from Southwest. So there's a representation. So anywhere it goes to across Nigeria, people watch. But if you have only Igbo actors, or you have only Yoruba or Hausa actors, it's going to be very difficult. So I think these things play a major role as to why movies from Kannywood do not usually go to cinemas in the South.
But in this, would you consider, well, as I'm asking the question, I already see the challenges. I was going to say, would you consider in making your film, in bringing in somebody from the South? But I think the answer would be the language would be a problem.
No. It's a good question. You see, it's a good thing for us in Nigeria. You see, something about Nigeria, which most people do not understand and do not cherish, is instead of being tribalistic or having this religious, difference and what have you, I feel we're a blessed country, and we have these different cultures, religion, and languages for us to explore the art in it. I'm presently working on a script that has a youth couple from the Southeast coming to northern Nigeria. It's going to be a Hausa stroke English movie. I'm working on the script presently, and that's the experiment I want to do with such a project.
Yes, actually, because I think the people also say that many times what drives the film will be the story. If you can give people a good story, usually you can really cut across the different societies and so on. Okay. Well, I have a question here from Tony. By the way, please, for the rest of our audience, please drop your questions in the chat box and we'll take them from there as we go along. I have a question here from Tony, who is asking, kindly speak to us about movies or TV shows, foreign and local, that have influenced your directing, acting, and writing.
Great. That's a nice one. Okay, fine. Talking about that, I must confess, and I say it everywhere I go to, Bollywood, wow. Sorry, I'd like to be back in a bit.
That's okay. We know the country we're in. Go ahead, please.
Of course. Okay, yeah, Bollywood has a very huge influence on Kannywood, or anyone that is into Kannywood. That's, I know. And I think our style of filmmaking generally, you see songs in our movies. These things came about because that's the style we see in Bollywood. So it influences us a lot. Now, most people go like, no, this is not Nigerian. This shouldn't be. This shouldn't be included in Nigerian movies. So why we usually do that is because for every filmmaker, there's a commercial aspect of filmmaking that the person looks at.
Certainly.
So in northern Nigeria, a lot of people or a large chunk of the audience enjoy watching these songs, listening to them. Secondly, you can use just those songs to do the publicity of your movie. Right. And if you're fortunate, one of those songs clicks, oh, you're going to get so much money because people come to watch that movie either in the cinema or when the DVDs are out, like it was in those days. They usually buy the film just because of that song, and then they get to see the movie. So it's one of them, like the commercial strategies that's being used in northern Nigeria, and that's an influence from Bollywood, I'll say. And when you watch some of the movies from Kannywood where you get to see action sequences, you get to see the Bollywood style where the hero, has this, has this authority, he has this confidence, he has this larger than life, image, and that's all from Bollywood. So there's a huge influence. Even this series that if you usually watch Hausa series, you find out that it's in the line of Z World kind of series. Why? Because this is what the audience has been fed with over the years. So if at all you want your own to click, it has to go along that line. So this has really influenced the industry generally from northern Nigeria.
I have come across, well, should I say some writing or the views of various persons who indicate that there's some sort of, well, not that there is a kickback, but people have complained precisely at this kind of influences that they say is contrary to the Hausa culture or to the culture of the North. So that they say these influences from Bollywood, like you have also indicated, do not reflect the reality, but not just that it doesn't reflect, but that they say it has a negative impact. Is this the case?
Well, talking about having a negative impact, I do not believe in that. But then talking about they do not depict reality. It is true. Even if you go to India, you won't just see a guy and a girl dancing on the street. It doesn't happen. It's filmmaking, it's fiction, and it's something to entertain. You could do movies to tell history, you could do movies to entertain people, you could do movies to show, technological advancement and what have you. The filmmaker is at liberty to do all that. So it depends on what the filmmaker chooses as an individual to do. So I don't see it as anything that is negative to society, because when you look at the movies that are being made presently, most of the movies that are being made are movies that depict reality, movies that treat social issues in the society. Most of the Hausa movies, that's how they are now. So in those days, it was the growing process. That was the process that led to what is being made now.
Now, in terms of distribution, we have spoken a little about the cinemas, but away from the cinemas, how do you distribute your film, you now as a producer? And what is the possibility that you see you can grow an audience amongst those who do not speak the language? Is that something that you say could be done actively to strive to grow that audience? Because if you say that the series, for instance, like you mentioned, are similar to Z World, and Z World is popular amongst people in this parts, in the South, that is. So why can we not do the same thing with those Hausa series to try to grow an audience in these parts?
Yeah, that's a good thought. And I think we're beginning to do that, because most of the series, I can give you their titles are on YouTube and they're subtitled in English. For Z-World, it's not subtitling, they do the dubbing thing in English. But in our case, we subtitle the series in English. And I think we're beginning to get feedback from places, not just in Nigeria, from places like Cameroon, Kenya, South Africa. My series currently running on YouTube is titled Alaka, and I think Alaka has been receiving positive reviews. In fact, if you go to the comment section, out of 400 comments, 370 comments are in English, not even in Hausa. So that means it's clicking with the audience. So that's it.
Okay, fantastic. Now, in spite of the successes of the film industry in this country, there still remains a certain negative perception socially about this profession. And of course, there are many parents who would say never if their children talk about going into this space. Have you at any time had to deal with this reality? And how, from your perspective, do you see this changing?
Come again, please. Can you just, I didn't get that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said there still remains a rather negative perception because people look at those who go into the creative arts, into filmmaking and so on. For some people, it still remains a field when they say, well, they're dropouts, layabouts, people who are not serious. That negative perception socially.
I get to hear that.
Yeah. Exactly. So my question is, have you had to deal with this reality? And from your perspective, do you see this changing? Yes, it has changed to some extent, but we still have this challenge in life. How do you see it?
Yeah, this is something that has been happening in Nigeria and is still happening. And talking about coming, facing this reality. Yes, I have, because even when I started out as an actor, one of my siblings said I should go and get something to do. This is not a job. And it's been over 20 years now. I'm more successful than that sibling of mine. So this goes to show that it is a profession and one can live off it. You see, there are a couple of things that people need to understand about being in this industry, depending on which field in the industry you belong to, because people belong to different departments. Now, I'm an actor, and I'll speak from the actor point of view. From the actor point of view, when you come into limelight, the productions keep coming, endorsements come, you become very successful. A lot of actors are responsible for the way people look at us generally. Why? Because most of the actors do not try to, create that image of them being good role models, in the sense that you get money, you want to live a lavish life, you want to make everybody believe and know you are in money. You want to be in the limelight all the time. I personally feel, yes, you're a celebrity and you should be celebrated, but then you don't have to go extra mile in doing those things, because those things cost you a lot. Instead, what you get from that profession, invest it. Even if it is not all that you're investing in the profession that you belong to, you can invest it in other things. Now, later, when the movies stop coming, because there's no way you'll be at the top forever. When those things, stop coming, you have other businesses you can fall back on, because you've established those businesses over time. And this is what will make people understand that, yes, it is a lucrative profession. This person has been in it for this number of years. So if somebody has been in it for this number of years and that person has been successful, then it means it's a good one. That's one. Secondly, most people have this belief that actors are people who are into living fake life, living the too expensive lifestyle where you go to rent five-star hotels, you stay in there for over a month and what have you. Yes, when productions come, or when you are involved in some projects, you could be in the hotel for over a month, 2, 3. That's, I understand, but using your own earnings to go rent a hotel, I don't think it's a wise thing to do. Aside that, if we as role models will understand that we need to, just keep it low, make everybody understand that we are working class people like every other person, not going on social media, because social media is doing a lot of harm. You think you're flaunting things on social media to intimidate people or make the audience believe you are one person that is very rich, or you're one person that belongs to a profession where you get money anyhow. By so doing, you are misleading the youth. You're making it, because somebody might come in and the person doesn't make that much money that you are making. The person did not see the struggles you had to go through before you came to that point. You only came on social media to show that person your success, and what came out of your hard work. So if the person doesn't see those things when he or she starts the profession, the person becomes disappointed and just feels, I'll do anything to get money and live a life like this person. So you're misleading the audience, and this is part of the reason why some parents or some people in the society look at you as a bad influence, as a negative influence. So it all depends. We need to generally change the narrative. And that's the only way people will understand that it is a profession, one can live off it.
That's a very good point indeed. That's a very good point indeed, truly. Now, well, Tony has another question here at the back of what you just said. Now, this is now the business end of filmmaking. He says, thank you. Earlier on, you mentioned funding your own movie. What is the movie funding model in Kannywood generally, and in your own experience in particular?
Okay, well, I'll speak for myself. You see, for some people in Kannywood, they try to get financiers out of the industry, just anywhere, maybe some corporate organizations. Some do partnership productions with NGOs or some companies that are interested in, leveraging on that platform to promote their product or company. In my case, like the series I'm currently running, what I do is I have a sponsorship arrangement with some of the brands I work for as a brand ambassador, and what I try to do is either do product placement for them or advertise for them on the show, and that's how I make, a large chunk of the money I get for the project before even uploading it, getting the remuneration from YouTube and what have you. I've already made my money. I've break even. That's what I do personally. Talking about movies, like any movie I'm taking to the cinema, I let some of the brands know that, okay, fine, I'm doing so movie, I'm taking it to the cinema, but then we just have one cinema in northern Nigeria, and that is not going to be sufficient enough, to break even, make profit and what have you. But they can come on board as partners, and then right from the day the movie is announced, it's attached to the brand that is interested in it. The whole publicity, everything you do about the movie, then you have the product placement in it. So this, they even sponsor the premiere and what have you. So this goes a long way in promoting their brand, while you as a filmmaker now will be able to make a movie and do another one. So that's my model.
Let me take you up a little more on the aspect of the YouTube, because I noticed that more and more, this appears to be the first option for many filmmakers. Yeah. It's one thing to do it, if one already has a following. But for the young filmmaker, will this necessarily be a good first choice as a model that you say, I'm going to make my films and I'm going to put them on YouTube?
Honestly, for starters, it's not easy, not at all. Because even if you are a filmmaker that has been around for quite a long time, if you have not really had content that you can upload on your YouTube page before you start talking about making a production that is targeted at YouTube, is usually not easy. It's a very difficult thing to do. Because you see, gaining subscribers on YouTube in a place like Nigeria is not easy. Yeah, people don't even take you seriously. Unless you become a content creator and you're fortunate that your content goes viral. A typical example, Brother Shaggy, he made it via YouTube during the lockdown period, when you had a lot of people coming, on YouTube to watch because people had nothing to do. Aside that, it's not an easy thing for a starter, anyone that is just coming up. It's not easy.
Okay. Okay. Now, you spoke about your role as, well, your connection rather, linked to the aspect of being a brand ambassador. In the same way that you mentioned that you take very seriously the reality that you are a role model when you are acting your roles in the films, do you also put in the same consideration when deciding to accept to be the brand ambassador for one product or the other? Do you consider the fit? Because this is one of the things that they say advertisers think about. Is this person a true fit with the characteristics of this brand? Is that the consideration that you take it, you bring up as well?
Of course, I do, because there are some things you associate yourself with, and if you're not careful in the long run, it might harm your image.
Right.
So I try to do that. For instance, a lot of betting companies have approached me to be brand ambassador. I told them no, because I know the audience I'm dealing with. Now, forget about even the religious aspect. We're in a country, or rather, I'll say the region where I belong to is a place whereby if this person bets, and unfortunately it doesn't click for that person, the person will say it is Ali Nuhu that deceived me to go and do this. Anyone going to betting should understand that it's either you win or you lose.
Right.
But in most cases, where I come from, the region I come from, people would think you're the one that just deceived them to do this and it didn't work for them. Whereas it might work for another person. So it's better for me not to even accept anything of that sort, so it doesn't become a problem. There are a lot of alcohol brands that have actually wanted me on board, and I told them no, because the North is predominantly an Islamic region, and my religion doesn't allow it, so I shouldn't associate with it. There are people who want to associate with it. Fine, I have no reservations if you want to, but then I, as an individual, cannot, and I don't. Likewise, there are these people selling herbal medicines that they usually package. They also approach me that they want me to be a brand ambassador, but I tell them no, because I believe in, I don't believe in the traditional kind of medicine. I believe in the, scientific kind of medication. So I don't want to put myself into trouble. Somebody will say, it's Ali Nuhu that advertised it. We were giving our patient, and the patient didn't get well, or something happened along the line, so the person blames you. It tarnishes your image. So there are things that you need to be very, very careful. It's not all about I'm going to be paid this amount of money, I'm going to be paid that amount of money. You need to be careful about all these things.
Okay, thank you. But just a reminder to the audience, please, if you have questions, just drop them in the chat box and we'll take them from there. Now, you are the founder of a production company, the FKD Productions. Why did you decide to set up a production company? Is it because you wanted to tell particular kinds of stories, or you wanted to have more control over your own creative endeavors? Because yes, if you are hired as an actor in someone else's film, you can only do so much. But in your own, yes, there's more scope to tell the kinds of stories that perhaps you want to tell. What motivated you in this regard?
Well, honestly, I just felt it is very important for me to have a film production outfit of my own because I have my own kind of stories that I want to tell. That's one. Secondly, I look at the society generally, and there are a lot of things that should be discussed. And filmmaking is one of the tools that you could use to discuss those things because, like the movie I just told you that I took to Southern Nigeria, it was on drug abuse, you know. So drug abuse at a point around that period of 2017 up until 2020 in Northern Nigeria, it was a problem for everybody because almost every home had a child, a woman, or a man that was into drug abuse. Right. And we need to play our own parts as filmmakers. Aside that, I've also made a movie on countering violent extremism because, as we speak in Northern Nigeria, kidnapping, terrorism, and what have you, it's a big problem. So I decided to I just said, okay, fine, let me play my own role. And what I'll do is look at the causes and the methods through which these youngsters are being, they're being engaged into this, or they're being recruited, I would say, into this various terrorists and kidnapping groups and banditry. So that was the subject. So when you have things like this that you want to discuss as an individual, some filmmakers might tell you they are not interested in this. They only want to do out and out commercial movies. But if you have your own production outfit, you could be able to do this. And that's the main reason why I own one.
I have just finished working on a research paper, which was trying to see how filmmakers deal with the censorship guidelines. And one of the things that came up there is the concerns that the filmmakers I interviewed, that is, that they had, that they were not being allowed to tell the stories, well, not tell the stories, that some of the things they wanted to represent in their films, they were not being allowed to do that. And then, but they were saying that, look, these things you're telling us not to show are the reality. This is what's going on. So how can I tell my stories based on social things and I cannot touch on some of these things, which really is what is going on? Have you had this challenge that you say that, for instance, you're talking about the problems with drug abuse, you're talking about the problems with kidnapping, but then you can only show so much because the censorship rules say, don't show this, don't show that. Does that become a challenge for you as well?
Yeah, you see, that has been a challenge for everybody because almost every filmmaker at a point in time comes across one problem or the other relating to this. For instance, I just told you that I did a film on drug abuse. And when I took it to the Kano State censorship, but the first problem I came across was that every scene where the benylin with codeine syrup is being taken should be cut off. And the people at the chopping table there, I would say the people doing the censorship, they kept insisting that it's a bad influence. It will show youngsters that if they take this. But I said, we are talking about rehabilitation here. So you need to show these youngsters what was the reason why this guy needed rehabilitation. And he was taking this benylin with codeine. There's no way you can cut this off. But fortunately for me, the executive director of the board, he happened to be, he was a filmmaker before he attained that position. So he understood the point from where I'm going. So we had to go to his office. So when I gave them reasons why these things needed to be present, and he said, they have to let this go. There's no way they can cut this off in the movie, because if they cut it off, then the aim is defeated. So most of us as filmmakers have come across this. When you come to treat films to do with rape, it is the biggest wahala we have in Nigeria. Because they'll tell you, you're trying to promote nudity, you're trying to promote, I don't know, violence against a gender. But then you're not promoting, you're trying to educate. And while trying to educate, you need to show some of these things for you to be able to convince anybody practicing this that, okay, there is a law against this thing that this person has done. So you end up, trying to use sound effects, and all sorts of effects that will make people understand, okay, this is what has happened, or this is what is happening. So it's a huge constraint for everybody, not just me as a filmmaker.
Right. Thank you. Good point. Well, I have a question here from Sam. And Sam says, you spoke about publishing your videos to YouTube. Can you intimate us on your revenue model on YouTube? What is the main benefit of publishing your film on YouTube?
Okay, fine. First of all, the main reason is because we now have a large chunk of our audience who are on YouTube. You see, most of the series that go on YouTube in northern Nigeria, you go to villages where there's no electricity, nothing like civilization, but they know such movies. When they see some of these characters, they go crazy about them. So it means it's a very good network. But then some people download these movies from the YouTube page. All about filmmaking is for you to get to reach your audience. That's one of the reasons. Now, secondly, of course, you gain revenue at the end of each month. And YouTube is far better than those days where you have marketers, you take your films to, and this person starts telling you stories, the money is not ready, you have to wait for so months. YouTube doesn't do that. They just give you they send your money at the end of even just before the end of each month. So you're certain that that money drops. Thirdly, you're building this fan base. When I started out on YouTube, I had just like when I really became serious, I had not more than 10,000 subscribers, but presently I have about 250,000 subscribers. Wow. And by the time you get 1 million subscribers, God knows how your earnings will be. And for each episode that I release in like a week, it runs to 280,000 views for each episode that I release. I have some of my colleagues that in 2 weeks they clock 1 million views, even though the show has been on for over 2 years. So you can imagine what the revenue is. It's a platform that just started in northern Nigeria, and I would say, fortunately for us, it's growing. So it's part of the solution to the problems we have as regards, distribution of our jobs that we usually do.
One of the challenges that people indicate in terms of using that platform is that of people stealing your content. Do you face that challenge?
Of course we do. I just told you. And if I tell you something about, you'll be surprised. In northern Nigeria now, we have a system that we're able to tackle that. Even if we don't tackle it completely, but then to an extent, we're able to do that. And what we do is we have these guys that have laptops in phone, in places where they repair phones, and there's a market called Farm Center in Kano, which is the center. So you now sell off the rights of downloading your projects from YouTube to them. You sell off the rights, they go into every nook and cranny, they know every person that is into distribution on these laptops in Kano, Kaduna, Bauchi, name it. So sometimes they even go to arrest people who are doing it illegally. So they have taken care of that problem for you. So that's another, system.
Wow, that is impressive. That's quite a solution, I must say. But now, when you say you sell up the rights to persons like that,
yeah,
what kind of, how should I put it? How much is that? Because really, if you that's a major right you're selling up. In that sense.
You see, okay, good. This is a good question. This depends on negotiations between you and the marketer that's doing that. That's one. And what we usually do is 13 weeks is a season for us. So you sell off a season. Now, when the second season comes on, the next 13 episodes become the next season. So when that comes on, depending on how the show is being watched, how it's moving, how the views are increasing, then you increase the amount for that person. Some take into consideration the standard of the production. Productions vary. There's a production you see, this one is a big one. So the person that is coming for that, for instance, my own show, about 3 people were after it, but the first person that started with the first season, we're now shooting the 3rd season. The person, when we came to the 2nd season, he on his own just came and said, I'm adding so amount for you. So you see, someone like that, you can continue the business with because is a person that is concerned about the franchise and how it progresses.
Yes.
But a lot of people have come to me asking me that they want to talk more money, they want to have it, but I said no. Because even he does that on his own. So it depends on your conversation or your negotiation power as a filmmaker with the person in question.
So it means that this person then makes his own money by downloading and selling hard copies.
What they do, what I know that they do is they meet everybody that is downloading. The figure they collect from the person, you look at it, it's like it's no big deal, but it's big money. For instance, they will give you a poster and you have that poster that they've printed, you put it in the front of your shop. So they know you rightfully own, you have that right to download their contents. Now they collect 2,000 naira from you. But in an area, you can have over 20 people that have these laptops. So by the time you take into consideration each constituency, each local government, because we do these things based on local governments, you find out that they have gained so much money from it. That's one. And there's something I forgot to mention. Now, the Kano State Censorship Board was able to register the football viewing centers across Kano and its environs. Kano has 44 local governments, and we have over 7,000 viewing centers. Now, these viewing centers, talking about movies, they buy off rights of movies to show when you're done with the big cinemas. And what they do is, money they come from there. There's money from there. Honestly, I just wish every state can adopt that model. It's a very good one. It's a very good one.
That sounds to me like, this whole idea we've been talking about for quite a while now, the community cinemas.
Yes.
It seems to me like that's close to it, or it's the same idea. Now, but do you see, I'm talking now of the selling the rights to download. Do you see that as a model that can be exported? Because it seems to me like there's a better order there in order that you can see, yes, we know who all these people are, we can follow up on them and so on. But if we come to a place like Lagos, it seems to me that that would be extremely challenging to do. Do you think that model can be exported?
Yeah, you see that this model can be exported. It all depends on them. If there's a state censorship board that takes care of them doing that,
Yeah.
they take charge, they go to each local government, they make sure they have it. Kano State has liaison offices in the 44 local governments, and each liaison office has a motorcycle that goes around. Yeah, so that's a structure the government was able to do as its contribution to the movie industry. And at the same time, that helps the state government generate revenue, because each year, these people having the viewing centers and the downloading shops, they usually go to the censorship board to renew their registration. So that's a source of revenue for them too.
I like this. I like this very much. And it also tells me something, because what we tend to see more of in the publications, especially the academic side, is more the challenges that censorship brings. But you don't really find people talking about this role of helping the industry also to generate funds. And I think it's a very important point. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, one last question before we go, just to round things up a bit. What advice would you give to anyone that wants to enter the industry? You have been in this industry for quite a while, and you have had a lot of experience. So for a young person wanting to enter the industry now, and there's so many of them, what advice would you give?
Okay, fine. Talking about advice, what I'll always advise the youngsters to do is, first of all, if you want to come into this industry, just come into it because you have the passion, and not because you're coming here to make wealth or become famous and what have you. Having this notion that you're coming here to make money or become famous is what has made a lot of people miss it. So when you have passion, because when you come initially, you don't get that wealth and money. You need to work really very hard for you to get to that point. And that is why a lot of people come in, and it's only a few that are able to stand the test of time. So that's my advice generally. Forget about anything you see on social media. This person don't make money. This person has bought this house. Forget about all that. Just concentrate. You're here, to do, you're here, you're in a profession. Yes, we know it's a business, but then the business aspect of it will come later when you have already, been able to settle down and carve a niche for yourself.
But don't you think that this business aspect is one that they also need to prepare for? Because you yourself pointed out that many times people, well, they are earning the money, but they're not investing it wisely and this kind of thing. And then there have also been these complaints that the creative person usually are rather weak when it comes to, well, the business angle of things. So don't you think that should also be something that the young person puts into place to understand really that filmmaking is a business?
Yeah, filmmaking is a business, and that's why I'm telling people they should come in, with the passion of it. Yeah, because when you come in with the passion of it, that's when you'll be able to settle down and understand all these things. When you talk about business to a lot of them, the youngsters, they miss it, because I see it happening in Bollywood. They just feel, I'm here today, I have to make money today. Yeah, and that's why I talked about somebody coming in, trying to work hard, carve a niche for themselves before they start thinking about that aspect of the whole profession.
Okay. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. I have learned a lot. Like I said, I particularly like what you said about the structure, this downloading thing. It's a great idea, really. It's a great idea. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us, and thank you for your time. Really, to give us so much time on a Saturday is not is quite generous. And thanks very much to our audience. Thank you for being with us. Well, this interview will be put up on our YouTube channel shortly, and well, those who want to take a second look can also do that. So, thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me, and have a nice day.
You too. You too. All the best.